What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 4 top 70 flex rankings. You guys like that I did these last week. We're going to make this an every week thing, so that's what we're doing for today. If you enjoy, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. But let's just dive right into the rankings, and starting off in Tier 1, not going to go super in depth on these early guys, because even in like 4-team leagues, they're obviously going to be locks in your lineup. So Tier 1, we have CMC, Puka, JT, James Cook, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Devon Achane, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and JSN. These are your elite wide receivers, your elite running backs. Now moving into Tier 2, going to start off with Malik Nabers. And I will point out that he did miss practice on Wednesday with the shoulder injury that he suffered on Sunday Night Football. He's also going to have a new quarterback with Jackson Dart coming in. The quarterback change isn't really moving me a ton in either direction. It's not like Russ had been amazing. I know he had the one big week. I think Dart could come in. He'll be fine. They're going to at least try to feed Malik Nabers the ball, and I don't think it's going to be like a massive downgrade. I also just think that like if he's looked bad in practice and he hasn't been playing well, they wouldn't be throwing him to the Wolves here against the Chargers. So Malik Nabers, I think, is still a fine play. Then I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson. Fine first game with Carson Wentz. Still obviously an elite talent at the wide receiver position. Then I'm going to go with Derrick Henry going up against the Chiefs. He's coming off of uncharacteristic back-to-back down games. Had some fumbling issues early on in the season, 3 fumbles. Arguably was responsible for losing 2 games with those late fourth quarter fumbles. I think he'll bounce back here. He's still in a top tier offense. It's still Derrick Henry. I'm not super concerned. Then I have Josh Jacobs. His usage has been great. The efficiency has just been really poor. I do think this is a get right spot here against the Cowboys. Then I have Jamar Chase. Fine game in week 3 considering how bad the overall offense was. Not a great matchup here against the Broncos. He could draw some of that Pat Surtain matchup, but in the last game of 2024 where Surtain was on him, he had a strong performance. We saw Quentin Johnston have a good game. I don't think this is a death wish for Jamar Chase. And I don't think that this Bengals offense is just going to be as heinous as it was in week 3. I think they'll be fine. And Jamar Chase is obviously still a monster at the wide receiver position. I would not feel concerned about starting him this week. Then I have Nico Collins going up against the Titans. He was limited on Wednesday with a knee injury. At this point, not super concerned. He's bounced back with back-to-back solid games after a rough week 1. Then I have Bucky Irving, and the usage has been really strong. The efficiency just hasn't quite been there. It's not a great matchup against the Eagles, but he's pretty much a workhorse running back on a really strong offense. Then a huge riser, obviously with the Najee Harris injury. Amarian Hampton coming off a big week 3, 19 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 59 yards. I think this is a great matchup here against the Giants. The Giants have allowed the 4th most points per game to the running back position. I think the Chargers can put up points. I think Amarian Hampton is going to be a really strong running back option moving forward. Probably at worst like a fringe running back 1 with the upside to be, a back end to mid-tier running back 1 rest of season. Then moving into Tier 3, going to start off with Kyren Williams. Solid week 3. I like him here against the Colts. Just someone who's going to be in that fringe running back 1 area. Then I have Jordan Mason going up against the Steelers. Really strong week 3, 16 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, that was just a wild game script where they were ahead super early on. I think the big concern for Mason is just how involved he can get as a pass catcher, because if you're only getting work on the ground, you do just become super touchdown dependent. And, in blowouts, game scripts like that, if you have more competitive games, it is going to be tougher and, you might be a little bit less reliable, lower weekly floor. I still think he's a strong option this week. Then I have Devontae Adams, back-to-back strong games. Rome Odunze has been an absolute monster to start off the season, going up against the Raiders here. They've allowed the 3rd most points per game to wide receivers. Rome is averaging 20.9 points per game so far. He scored at least 15 PPR points in all 3 games. He has totaled 27 targets, so 9 targets a game. The usage has been there. He's hitting in the touchdown department. This Bears offense is looking good. I like him this week against the Raiders. Then another young wide receiver here, Emeka Egbuka, going up against the Eagles. He's averaging 17 points per game so far. You have Mike Evans missing some time. Godwin is likely going to be back this week, but I just don't think we can be confident that he's going to step in and just be a huge factor right away. Obviously, he was amazing last year before the ankle injury, but this could definitely be a situation where he's kind of easing his way back in. And even with a healthy Evans, Egbuka was still very, very productive. After Egbuka, I'm going to be rolling with Drake London, who's been underwhelming to start off the season. I think he'll be fine. Penix coming off a brutal week 3. There's certainly some concern with the overall ceiling of Drake London, but I still think he's going to be, like at worst, a reliable wide receiver 2 moving forward. Then I have A.J. Brown, finally had a big game in week 3, too talented to just, continue to log those rough performances. I still think there's some concerns here with the Eagles' passing attack, but talented player. He's my number 25 overall option this week. Then I'm going to go with Zay Flowers going up against the Chiefs. Really strong production week 1 and week 2. Definitely fell off in week 3, but I still think they want him to be the focal point of this offense. Maybe the weekly floor and overall consistent target floor isn't quite there, but I still think he's a strong option on one of the best offenses in the NFL. Then I have Garrett Wilson, just really solid target earning through 3 weeks, averaging 10 targets a game. I think it'd be interesting if we get Justin Fields back. I believe he is still in concussion protocol, but this is not a matchup that scares me here against the Dolphins. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be J.K. Dobbins. He's been really solid to start off the season, averaging 15.2 points per game. And then on paper, this is just a great matchup. Game script-wise, the Broncos are 7.5-point favorites. The Bengals have allowed the second most points per game to the running back position. I think this is a smash spot for J.K. Dobbins. Then moving into a very large tier 4, starting off with George Pickens, should see a target bump with CeeDee Lamb out. Not a great matchup here against the Packers. Pretty rough matchup, but Pickens is still a talented wide receiver. Dak is still competent at the quarterback position. Then I have Tedero McMillan going up against the Patriots. I will point out he missed practice on Wednesday with a calf injury. It sounds like he believes he's going to be good to go. He's earning targets. He's really producing on those opportunities. He has 216 yards in his first 3 games. I'm a big believer in Tet. I think he's a nice play this week. Then I'm going to go with Breece Hall. On paper, this is a nice matchup. The Dolphins have allowed the 5th most points per game to the running back position. I think we could see a nice bounce back here from Breece. He had a nice week 1, rough week 2 and 3. I think week 4 can be more like week 1. Then I'm going to go with Ricky Pearsall. I did drop him a little bit from my wide receiver rankings video because he is a little bit banged up. He missed practice on Wednesday with a knee injury. This entire 49ers roster, the injury bad luck is just out of control. But when Pearsall's been out there, he's been very productive this season. He went 4 for 108 in week 1. Week 2, 4 for 56. Week 3, 8 for 116. The man's been productive. You're just hoping he is healthy enough to play on Sunday. Then I have Chuba Hubbard. The usage is starting to kind of wane off a little bit. It's tough to know if that was just like a game script thing against the Falcons in week 3, but something to monitor. At this point, he still has very solid usage. Then I have Travis Etienne going up against the Niners. Not the best matchup, but Etienne's been the clear running back 1. The run game wasn't as productive in week 3, but week 1 and week 2, it looked great. I like him here in tier 4. Then I just have the 3 Chargers wide receivers back to back to back. Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston. I talked about this in the wide receiver video, but even though Ladd has been the clear number 3 in terms of production, I don't think this is a situation where he's just going to get blown away as the wide receiver 3 rest of season. He's averaging 10.4 points per game. Keenan's at 18.8. Quentin Johnston's at 18.6. I just think Ladd is too talented for there to be that large of a gap. I would not be shocked if rest of season Ladd is the wide receiver 1. In fact, that would be my bet here. If I had to pick one of these guys to have rest of season, it still would be Ladd McConkey. But all 3 of these guys should be productive. The target share on this offense is just so concentrated at the wide receiver position. Maybe that shakes up a little bit with Gadsden, starting to emerge here at tight end. But, so far, the wide receivers have dominated the target share. And then also just specifically, these 3 have dominated the targets. 92% of the wide receiver targets have gone to either Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, or Quentin Johnston. Justin Herbert looks amazing. The offense looks great. They're very willing to pass the ball this season. It's really wheels up for all these dudes. Even though I know Ladd's been a little bit underwhelming, I'm not panicking. If you can buy low, I certainly would. Then continuing on with this tier, we have Cortland Sutton, really strong week 1 and 3, bounced back from that week 2 clunker. Game script wise, might not be great, but a pretty soft matchup here against the Bengals. Then I have Debo going up against the Falcons. Definitely just some overall injury issues for the Commanders offense. Jaden Daniels was limited on Wednesday with his knee injury. We'll see if he plays. Terry McLaurin, it looks like he is going to miss some time, potentially like a decent amount of time if things don't go great there with his injury. So Debo could just be like the locked in wide receiver one. If Terry's confirmed to be out, I'd definitely consider bumping Debo up maybe to like this 3-4 turn area, like in the George Pickens, Tet McMillan range. But I think this is a fair spot as of right now. But if he's like the clear-cut number one target, you could definitely see that bump. Then I have Jacoby Myers, just super safe, high weekly floor option. Good matchup here against the Bears. Then I'm going to go with Ashton Genty. He's been super disappointing, only 8.6 PPR points per game. He's been inefficient. He hasn't gotten super involved as a pass catcher. I do think this could be a get-right game here. The Bears have allowed the 6th most points per game to the running back position. I'm still a believer in the talent, but just like for this specific season, the offensive line looks really, really rough. And like even the best running backs sometimes can't overcome just awful offensive line play. So that's definitely an issue here for Genty. Then I'm going to go with Kamara. Hasn't been overly productive, but the usage has been solid, 20 opportunities per game. I do think you could pencil in a pretty solid receiving day here. The Saints are massive underdogs against the Bills. He should get involved as a pass catcher. Then we have Jaylen Warren, who really kind of broke out in the usage department in week 3. His opportunity share rose all the way up to 83%. The only issue here is that this is just a tough matchup against a very, very good Minnesota Vikings defense. After Jaylen Warren going with Javonte, this is also a very tough matchup from the same division, going up against the Packers. And then he actually had the opposite usage shift than Jaylen Warren, where Javonte's opportunity share fell all the way down to 56%. It'll be interesting to see what the split between him and Miles Sanders looks like. You could argue that it was just a game script thing. They were trailing, but then you look at the matchup this week, and they're probably going to be trailing also against the Packers. Continuing on with the running backs, we have Trey Benson and Quinshon Judkins. For Benson, I think he's going to step into a very strong role in this Cardinals backfield. James Conner, very sadly, out for the season, but he can catch passes. He had already kind of been improving his role throughout the season, or like at least early on here in 2025. So Benson, strong option moving forward. Then Quinshon Judkins, despite not having really any time with the team in training camp, not even being active to play week 1, he goes out week 3 and just dominates the opportunities. He took 19 of the 24 running back opportunities, 18 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown. In a game where this Browns offense really struggled, Quinshon Judkins still logged a very efficient day on the ground against a very, very tough Packers defense. So looks like wheels up for Quinshon Judkins. The big limiting factor is just this offense is terrible, but Judkins could still be a very productive fantasy running back. Then we're going to go with back-to-back tight ends here, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride. Both of these guys have been a little bit underwhelming. I think some people are concerned about Bowers. For me, I'm really just chalking up these last 2 games to him not being 100%. I think he's going to continue to get healthier, and even Bowers not at 100% is still better than pretty much every other fantasy tight end. And then for Trey McBride, he's been fine, not a crazy high ceiling so far, but super consistent option, solid weekly volume. He's going to be towards the end of tier 4. And then 2 last players, we have Kenneth Walker and Tyreek Hill. I'm expecting Charbonnet to play this week. He's been a full participant in practice. And I know some people think Walker's just pulled away with the backfield. I'm not sold. Now, long term, for the rest of the season, I am a believer that I think Kenneth Walker is going to claim this running back 1 spot. I'm just not really trying to rush him up the rankings because I'm not confident that's what's going to happen here. So he's going to be towards the end of tier 4. And then the last guy is going to be Tyreek Hill. Fine start to the season. Still some questions about this Dolphins overall offense. And then moving into a very large tier 5, we're going to start off with Cam Scatabo, who would be much higher if this wasn't such a tough matchup. The Chargers have allowed the 5th fewest points per game to the running back position, but Sharp is coming off a great week 3, 10 carries for 60 yards, 8 targets, 6 receptions for 61 yards. We have Tyrone Tracy, who's going to be missing some time here. The fact that Scatabo can get that usage on the ground, was productive with those opportunities, but then also can be super involved as a pass catcher, that is really awesome for him moving forward. And, even though this might be a few week window here, I do think he's going to pull away. He had already kind of pulled away in week 2, saw really strong usage that week. I think the Tyrone Tracy thing, like, almost kind of masked the fact that he was already going to overtake this backfield here. Then I'm going to go with Chase Brown going up against the Broncos. It's not a good matchup. The inefficiency has just been brutal for Chase Brown. I think the workload's going to be there, but touchdowns, efficiency, things that you'd kind of be banking on if Joe Burrow was healthy, those are no longer like strong points here for Chase Brown. Then I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy. He was a full participant in practice on Wednesday with that shoulder injury. That should mean he'll be good to go this week. Stepping into a very big-time matchup here against the Ravens. It's obviously tough to know what you're going to get. How limited is he going to be? But it does just feel like you want Xavier Worthy in your lineup. The Chiefs are desperate for like this big play threat, someone to really come in and, kind of be a spark in this offense. I do think Xavier Worthy could be that guy. Then I have Chris Olave. Crazy high weekly target floor. The dude's leading the NFL in targets. He's the wide receiver 24 in points per game. Probably going to be a pass-heavy game script here against the Bills. You're just hoping Olave can find like some sort of efficiency or potentially get into the end zone. Another guy who's going to be buoyed by targets, it is Jake Ferguson. He's been targeted 26 times in the last 2 games. CeeDee Lamb's out. It's going to be Ferguson and Pickens just getting peppered with opportunities moving forward. Then I have DeAndre Swift going up against the Raiders. He was limited in practice on Wednesday with a hip injury. He's been banged up to start off the season, still has seen some solid usage. At this point, I'm not super concerned about his status for week 4. Then I have Tony Pollard. This Titans offense is just bad. His usage has been strong, but like they have 15.5 implied points this week. That is a brutal number. It's not a good matchup here against the Texans. Tough to feel overly excited about Pollard, but he's certainly playable. Then I have Pittman, wide receiver 13 so far on the season. My overall concern is just the lack of targets, like 19 targets for a guy like Pittman who has kind of been a target hog throughout his season. That's not great, but I do think this could be a matchup where they have a more pass-heavy game script going up against the Rams where they are underdogs. Then I have DK Metcalf going up against the Vikings, another guy whose target numbers have been a little bit underwhelming, only 17, and it's just a tough matchup here against the Vikings. They have allowed the fewest points per game to the wide receiver position. Then we have BTJ, obviously a super underwhelming start to the season. He's been targeted 25 times, which is strong. He's only been able to bring in 7 of those, which is just like a brutal catch rate. He's only averaging 8.5 points per game, but it just does feel like at some point the talent has to win out and he is going to put it together. But I can't rank him much higher until we actually see him like look like a capable, competent NFL wide receiver out there. Then we have a couple of tight ends, Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren. Kraft's a little bit banged up right now, limited Wednesday with a knee and elbow injury, but I'd expect him to play. He was banged up going into last week, still played on a good offense, has that touchdown upside. And then for Tyler Warren, as a rookie, he's come in here. He is leading the tight end position in receiving yards. Like I talked about with Pittman, do think this could be more of a pass-heavy game script going up against the Rams. 2 more guys in this tier. We have David Montgomery going up against the Browns. I know some people thought I was a little bit low on Montgomery in my running back rankings video. I get it, right? He just had a huge game, so for him to be ranked kind of low, people don't really like it. You got to look at the usage, though. Only 31% opportunity share. That was low. He certainly made the most of it, but this is also just a tough matchup for running backs here going up against the Browns. Now, it is possible that we see the gap between him and Gibbs in usage kind of closed, especially with him having a strong game, Gibbs kind of struggling in the efficiency department, but I think this is a fair spot for him, right? Like he had the big boom game. That's going to happen. He's a good running back on a good offense, but I don't think anyone was all that excited about Dave Montgomery after the first couple of weeks. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Juwan Johnson. Just really strong usage at the tight end position. He's second in targets. He's been a top 2 weapon on this team along with Chris Olave. The Saints' pass attempt numbers have been up because they're always trailing. I think he's a fine option this week, especially at the tight end position, like a top 6 tight end in my rankings. And then the 6th and final tier, we're going to start off with TreVeyon Henderson. Admittedly, like it is tough to rank TreVeyon Henderson because you could see this week really being like the launch pad. You had Ramondre fumbling twice, Antonio Gibson fumbling. Like we could go out here in week 4. TreVeyon Henderson is the starting running back and it's just wheels up rest of season. But you could also just see this, once again, kind of devolving into a gross split where you have Ramondre getting involved, Antonio Gibson getting involved. And so you could go either way. I do like the matchup on paper here against the Panthers, but it's tough to rank him higher than this just with that uncertainty. And then I just have a bunch of wide receivers to close us out here. Juwan Jennings, banged up, missed Wednesday with ankle and shoulder injuries. If he plays, I think he's a fine wide receiver 3. Then I have Marv, underwhelming start to the season. It'll be interesting to see if he can get right here against the Seahawks tonight on Thursday Night Football. Then I have Jalen Waddle, rough week 1, nice bounce back in week 2 and 3. Devonta Smith finally had a strong game, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 460 yards and a touchdown. And then DJ Moore, this does feel a little bit low for Moore. The targets haven't been great, hasn't really flashed much of a ceiling, but the Bears have been getting him involved. He's been getting interesting usage on the ground. If that continues moving forward, I do think DJ Moore could have some improved upside and could log some better games. But that is going to wrap it up for my top 70 flex rankings. If you guys enjoyed, smash the like button, subscribe. Any questions, comments, feel free to drop them down below. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.